So I think one of the things that we want to cover in this session today is just to highlight the variety of options that are now available to you with the Microsoft Cloud. So we have products like Office 365, we have products like Azure, we now have combination products like Microsoft 365, which bring together the Enterprise Mobility Suite, Windows 10, wrap them up in a bundle and provide those as options for customers. So in this world today, what we face is basically we don't face a world where one size fits all. So for those of you who come from a small business server background, like myself, you do know that Small Business Server was a fantastic product. It was basically a monolithic solution. It provided Exchange, SharePoint, file sharing, print queues, all of that sort of stuff in a single box, and it worked well for many, many years. But the reality is that the landscape has changed. So the example or analogy I like to give people is the concept around coffee. So if you were to go down to your local haunt and to ask for coffee, you probably wouldn't get served. Now the reason for that is simply because they're looking for more information. They want to know what sort of coffee you want, a long black, flat white, latte, all that sort of stuff. Then they're going to want to know what sort of milk do you want, how much sugar, what size the cup is, and the reason is they're crafting an exact solution for you. Now the reason for this is probably because you enjoy your coffee and you may want something different the next day. So again, it's going to be crafted for you by a specialist who's going to need to be across all of these items. Now, the opposite of this is if you think when you go to a conference, you think that you attend a typical presentation or whatever, you have event coffee. So basically, they provide just a single, generic, pretty bland, filtered coffee. Now, the reason that they're providing that typically is to make it easier on themselves. They're not trying to make it easier on you. Typically, we would see people even go outside or to a coffee shop round the corner to purchase what they want rather than take the filtered option provided by the event organisers. So we need to really think about creating solutions and options for customers that are really tailored to their needs and help us stand out from the crowd. So what we need to think about is the fact that now everybody's going to want a tailored product. Everybody's going to want potentially a different coffee on a different day. So we're going to need to have expertise across a range of Microsoft products, also third-party products that integrate with these, put them together in solutions that solve problems for customers. Now, the great thing about all this is that all of these solutions work really well together. A lot of them are also controlled by a single identity now, thanks to Azure AD. And the really good thing is we can mix and match as required. So we can mix and match different products for different users to give them a totally tailored solution and really help them obviously get the most bang for their buck, but also really solve the problems that they're facing in their business. So the takeaway through all of this, and there's going to be a lot of options here, a lot of tables, there are a lot of things to digest here, and the slides will be available after the event for you to go into more detail, is to look at just the sheer number of options that are available and come up with a strategy, a plan, and some offerings around these that you can go and look at offering, a crafted product like a coffee rather than just generic, which we see a lot of cases. So with that in mind, the base that we normally work from, or we're starting from, is the Office 365. So Office 365 as a product has been with us now for quite a number of years. It has matured over time, but the unfortunate thing is we see the large majority of users and I suppose resellers as well are focused mainly on two major issues when it comes to Office 365. So in a customer's mind, the way they think about Office 365 is typically just Office on the desktop as a solution. So they're thinking Word, Excel, PowerPoint, basically as a subscription rather than purchasing it outright. They probably don't appreciate that Office 365 includes this plus something like business class email. Now, many resellers, again, are focused on the email component. That's a critical component of business operations today. But remember that Office 365 is far more than just email and Office on the desktop. It's also going to include the ability to share files. So we now have the ability to share files with a personal OneDrive. So every user effectively gets their own online storage location. You also get the ability to store files in an intranet style environment that will give you storage, plus it will allow you to craft web pages, calendars, contacts, and have a central location for everybody in the business to work from. Now, we're also seeing these products integrated together into things like Microsoft Teams, which will also incorporate things like chat in this environment as well. Now, we're also seeing the growing use of video conferencing. So we're doing exactly that today. You're seeing the ability for people to work remotely. You're seeing users who are working from home or part-time staff wanting the flexibility to be able to work wherever they are and whenever they want to. So all of this, again, is integrated into the Office 365 product. Now remember, one of the things I talk about with Office 365 is that Microsoft is there and provides technical support for Office 365. Now this is something that you as a reseller should take advantage of, as well as letting your customers know that you are backed up by the resources of Microsoft, by the ability to log support calls with Microsoft to have issues resolved. This is very comforting for customers because many of them are very concerned about their supply not being available or, God forbid, be hit by a bus. So don't be scared at firstly mentioning or letting customers know that technical support from Microsoft is your backstop. You are there to provide the relationship, you are there to provide the first level support. But if it does get beyond you, which does happen, then you have the full backing of Microsoft to assist you. And the other thing too is that if you ever get a problem that you can't solve, in a couple of searches, then don't be afraid to log a support call with Office 365 as well to help you solve that problem, because that, again, is incorporated and included in each plan without an additional cost. Now, again, Office 365 gives customers a financially backed SLA, which means that if the service is unavailable outside the agreement, then they'll receive cash back for that. Importantly, Office 365 and its products like Microsoft 365 are also now providing a large majority of the management directly via the web portal. Now, my recommendation for resellers is that you need to look at something more sophisticated like PowerShell for scripting. The big advantage PowerShell is going to give you is firstly the ability to automate. So once you get the script down to create a user or the script to change submissions on an email box, you can run that over and over and over again. So you're going to get that repetition. Now, once you've done that, once you've got a script, then you can offload it to other people in your team and have them run that script as well. So again, simple IT management, but you're really looking at the ability, I think, as a reseller to automate these things using tools like PowerShell to obviously reduce the amount of time that you invest in administration. Now, a lot of this administration style environment, things like PowerShell, applies not only to Office 365, Microsoft 365, EMS, Azure, all of that. So one of the real key differences, I think, of Microsoft technologies is its ability to be leveraged via PowerShell. And importantly, everybody today wants to be able to access their information anywhere they are. So the important extension here is that we've gone from an on-prem environment where everybody went to work and worked on a dedicated workstation to a situation where people are out in cafes, McDonald's, so on, working. And the next step to that is people working on mobile. So we're seeing a growing dependence of people who are working solely on their mobile devices. Their expectation is the ability to conduct their business almost exclusively on their mobile device. Now, doing so means that, again, how do we manage that? How do we maintain that? How do we protect the user when it comes to security of those devices, which now access corporate information? So again, we'll look at, again, more detail on how to do this, but let's just stay on the Office 365 here. So the first thing to help you understand Office 365 is that there are two major silos of plans. One is the business plan, and the next one is the enterprise plan. So we've got business premium, we've got business essentials, and then we've got enterprise E5, E3, ProPlus, and things like E1. Now, typically the way to start off is just with the desktop application. So we have a suite in both silos for those, and there are some differences between those which I will cover, but these are really great to target users who have a disparity of versions of Office on their desktop. So 2007, 2013, they have all different versions from OEM or wherever. You can now standardize. You can also make sure they're up to date, so everybody's got the same version. Now, for customers who already have desktop licensing that they don't want to upgrade or change immediately, then we have the pure web services. So Business Essentials and Enterprise E1 give customers the ability just to consume things like Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Microsoft Teams, and so on. So again, we can target just the desktop apps and get people started, or we can look at doing the back end, the cloud services, maybe replacing the server first and then working to the desktops. The Hero SKU is obviously the combination of these two. So Business Premium includes the desktop applications, but also includes the cloud services, SharePoint, Exchange, and so on, and likewise with E5. Now, obviously, Enterprise SKUs include a large amount of additional resources, additional functionality, which we'll cover, but in summary, we get two major silos here, Business and Enterprise. Inside of those, we have a number of options and combinations of the services. Now, the other thing to remember in all of this is that you can also buy those services individually. So if you wanted just mailboxes, the most basic mailbox hosting plan, Exchange Online plan, one, you can buy that and use that, and that's a couple of dollars a month. Now, from there, you can then extend that, you can add additional plans, or you can basically say, okay, my warehouse staff are going to just have a mailbox, but my office staff may be going to have Business Premium. So the good thing now is we can mix and match all of these as required. We can tailor them to every user, and typically if you're buying them through something like CSP, then it's a month-by-month contract and allows you to chop and change as required. Now, this gives you the flexibility and the customer the flexibility to scale up and scale down as required. So there isn't a great penalty in, again, providing an exact tailored solution. There are some limitations, obviously, as to how many SKUs and those sort of things, but the main thing is now we have total mix and match across all these environments. All right, so here's a bit of a first chart of the day, which is a comparison of the business version of Office that comes with the Business Premium versus what comes in the Enterprise plan. So you'll see pretty much everything is the same. Obviously, the OneDrive storage is much larger in ProPlus, so it's unlimited in the Enterprise plans, but the big differences come when you get the Enterprise features of Excel, so Power Quivot, Power Query, Power View. You also notice that the Business Edition doesn't include the compliance offerings, so no information rights management, email retention, data loss prevention, or archiving. You'll also see that there aren't controls over the Business Premium plans like group policy and your update controls. And very importantly, even though PSTN calling, cloud PSTN calling is not available in Australia as yet, there is no enterprise voice available in the business plan. So when the cloud PSTN calling comes to Australia, hopefully in the near future, then be aware that this will only be provided through the enterprise plans, not through the business plans. Now, the most important one that most people differentiate on is the RDS. So if you're using a terminal server, a remote desktop server, then you're going to need Office 365 ProPlus. That is the only version that is licensed. So you're going to need an E3 or an E5 SKU or Office ProPlus standalone to license basically an RDS server in an Office 365 environment. Now, if we broaden this out and have a look at all the plans, again, remember that we will give you these slides to go through in more detail. I know there's a lot of information here, but this gives you a range of the plans that are available. So our 3 business plans, again, get us started, provide all the basic offerings, and then we move to our enterprise plans. And you'll see that we have something called an F1 SKU. So F1 is now referred to as frontline. Think of that like the kiosk, web-based only access. So again, you'll see that's quite price competitive, a couple of bucks a month to give people some basic functionality. So I think that the focus should be in the business that you're talking about is, again, selling from high to low rather than low to high. So I'd be looking at talking up the features and showing the features of E5 and E3, the compliance features. So remember that we are now in an environment where we have the data breach legislation. We've also got GDPR coming into effect shortly, and it's important that you speak to your customers about improved security, improved identity management, and again, those simply come through typically the E3 and the E5, which give you things like data loss prevention that allows you to prevent information leaking outside the organization, gives you enhanced security and control over viruses and malware and crypto locker and those sort of things. So again, the business plans are a good start, I suppose, but I would certainly be encouraging people to look at the E3 and the E5 for the majority of productivity workers, and maybe the F1 for those people who are working behind the scenes who may not need the same power, and typically those who are not working with a traditional desktop, typically on a mobile device. So an important thing here is to understand exactly what each plan includes. And again, there are a lot more features in here that are available, and the best way to look at that is through basically the options that Microsoft will give you that let you know what's called the service description. So if you do a search for Office 365 service descriptions, that will give you in low-level granular detail exactly what each plan includes. So you don't need to know it off the top of your head, you just need to know to go to the Office 365 service descriptions to find the information at a granular level as to what plan includes what. But again, my advice would be is to look at standardizing around the E3 and the E5, because if you know what's available in E3 and E5, everything else is typically just a subset of that. So again, focus on the high-end plans and look at all the additional services, look at all the additional offerings that can be made to customers to solve problems like retaining emails, to keeping information safe no matter where it's sent on the internet. Now, all the plans that we see here in Office 365, again, you'll notice here, if you haven't seen this wagon wheel, this is just a simplified example of all the services that are potentially available in plans. So you've got things like Delve, you've got Planner, you've got Power Apps, you've got Flow for automation, you've got Stream for audio, you've got Microsoft Teams currently celebrating its first anniversary, and so on. So all of these items here in this wagon wheel are services that you could potentially be offering customers. So one of the ones I like to highlight, I think that's quite easy and applicable for many resellers, is OneNote. So if you haven't showed your customers OneNote, if you haven't built a service where you can get them up and started with OneNote, show them how to share notebooks, integrate those with Teams, work with those on the go on their mobile devices, then I think you're missing out. I think that OneNote is a really, really simple app that can have real big bang for the buck, really get customers interested and show them the power of truly working together in the environment using tools like Microsoft Office. So again, one of the things there is to, again, look at those services, craft your offerings around those, and then obviously you're not going to be able to do all of those services, and that's where it comes to partnering with others. So if you decide to do email and maybe project online perhaps, then you can find someone else who could do something like CRM or maybe things like Yammer as well. So again, don't just look at it as a single gun approach. You probably haven't got the resources to be across all of these in depth, so look to partner up with others who can fill the gaps. The important thing is that you want your customer coming to you saying, can we do this, can we do this? And for you to say, yes, I may not be able to do that, but I have a trusted party whom I can recommend to you. So again, remember, in a world of generic products like Office 365 and Azure, it's also easier for others to come in and say, well, I can do Power BI because your reseller's not doing Power BI. So again, make sure that you are across all of these in some way, shape or form, but you don't need to get into the nitty-gritty. Look to partner with others to give you those abilities which you may not currently have. All right, so as I mentioned, we can take the premium offerings in Office 365. So, for example, Advanced Threat Protection allows you to basically scan every email or scan every suspect email attachment that comes in, put it into a sandbox, open it up in a virtual machine, and then verify what it does to the registry, what it does to the files, what it tries to do when it's actually open. So Microsoft will do this for you if you add on the Advanced Threat Protection. Now, this is included in the E5 SKUs, but you'll notice that is also available as an add-on for business plans as well as Office 365 E3. Now, I certainly would recommend ATP. Again, you only need one license to get some of the tenant-wide features, but at about $2 or so a SKU per user, it provides that enhanced protection against phishing, against malware, and is really something I think that's a worthwhile investment no matter what plan you've got. You'll also see that things like advanced security management are also an add-on. You've got threat intelligence, and then if we go down to things like Power BI and PS10 conferencing, Cloud PBX, and so on, they are typically included in E5 but can be added on to most plans. The important thing to note is that the enterprise the enterprise voice stuff like Cloud PBX and PS10 calling, when it does come to Australia, will only be available as an add-on to enterprise plans. They won't be available as an add-on to business plans. All right, so when that does become available, remember you'll need an enterprise plan to do that. But remember, we can mix and match. We can have business plans and enterprise plans inside a single tenant. We can have standalone plans like advanced threat protection for 3 users if we want. We've got total flexibility over how we go and construct a solution for a customer. And the great thing is that we can adjust that on a month-by-month basis to suit their needs and provide exactly what they are after to solve their problems. Now, remember that all of this, we have to sit down and we have to determine how all of these things are licensing. So hopefully we've got some concept here of what the basics are around licensing. So there are 3 options here. So you've got your pay-as-you-go, credit card, and then you've got open licensing, which is the older way of doing it, which is typically a 3-year commitment, and the modern CSP cloud solution provider. Now, the pay-as-you-go, again, the idea here is typically the customer will pay with their credit card. You will manage the system and charge a management fee, but they will, again, pay Microsoft directly. And the good thing of that, no long-term commitment, and the support for that is done directly via Microsoft, so you can log a support call there with Microsoft directly in the portal. Open licensing is typically through volume licensing. Again, requirements are there. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. If you are already in the open licensing environment, this may work for you. I would suggest that it's not something you would dive into if you haven't done it as yet, because it is typically the older way of sharing, of handling licensing. The new way is the cloud solution provider. So the idea here is you white label the services. Ingram will push them into the client's tenant, and then you will send the client the bill per month, and Ingram will just aggregate all the licenses you have across all your customers and send you a single bill. So again, makes it easier to manage, allows you to white label the costs and invoicing to your customer, as well as bundle in additional services. So part of this thinking is that when you use the CSP program is to look at the fact that you probably shouldn't be charging as a single line item just the pure Office 365 licenses, because that means that people can compare them potentially with others who may be doing deals or whatever. It probably makes a lot more sense to bundle a whole range of services together and put that into the invoicing. So your invoice includes things like the Office 365 license, but also support, help desk, whatever else, training, and so on. So that's the benefit. Now, the important thing to remember with the CSP program is that the support mechanism is you as the provider. So the first line of support is directly to you as a partner, as the billing is. You then would escalate to Ingram, and if need be, Ingram would then escalate to Microsoft. So if you're using the CSP program to invoice people, then basically you have the primary support responsibility. Your disti then is the second port of call, and then it goes to Microsoft. So this means that you can't go directly into the portal and log a support call to Microsoft. You would have to do that via Ingram. And I certainly recommend people get used to that and understand how exactly that will work, because that is a difference between the pay-as-you-go direct model and the CSP provider. But the CSP provider gives you the flexibility to white label and bill, but also remember that it is the primary case for you supporting the tenant. All right, so again, the options here when we come to licensing are the cloud solution provider allows you to bill on the client consumption. So again, in an Azure model where you're billing for consumption, you just bill them for what they consume, and Ingram sends you that bill monthly, and then you pass that on and whatever additional services to your customer. All right, and then also remember that you're providing the provisioning, managing, and support for the customer directly. Pay as you go, again, advantages you can get started with a credit card. There are no longer any trailing commissions. I should have removed that, but you can still be partner of record. And again, there is open licensing if you do want to go down that path, but that probably is not the recommended way approach these days. So that's Microsoft 365 in a nutshell. The next product to consider here is the Microsoft Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite. Now, what this does, it adds the ability to improve the security of your tenant, provide more features, and especially look at managing devices. So managing mobile devices, managing Windows 10 machines, which are considered devices these days. So again, we want more protection around controlling our identity. We also want to manage our mobility. We want to protect the information with things like Azure Rights Management, and we want to potentially have the ability to virtualize our desktops as well. So again, a bit of a table here again is the Enterprise and Mobility Suite comes in two major offerings, again, E3 and E5. You'll see the differences here. So E3 will give us Azure AD Premium P1, Microsoft Intune, Azure Information Protection P1, and Advanced Threat Analytics. So the big advantage, I think, of this SKU is Intune. So Intune is going to give you that ability to manage your mobile devices, to be able to push out applications, control what users do on the devices, encrypt the devices, do wipes if you need to be, and control those devices to make sure the information is secure. The second big benefit is the Azure AD Premium P1. So Azure AD Premium 1 is going to give you things like password write-back when it comes to directory synchronization. So if you're using Azure AD Connect from your on-prem AD up to the cloud, it's a one-directional sync. The Azure AD Premium 1 provides the ability to do two-way password sync, change it in the cloud, it then copies it back to on-prem. It gives you a number of additional features as well. So again, you can get things like enterprise state roaming, which means that your Windows 10 profiles can roam between machines. You get advanced things like conditional access and so on. The third option here I'd call your attention to is the Azure Information Protection. The Azure Information Protection is rights management, which means that the permissions for the data, the actual document, is embedded in the document. So one of the downsides to data protection today on a server is once you take that data out of its file share, out of its protection, and then send it to someone in an email, there's no more protection. The protection is the container you've removed it from. But with Azure Information Protection, you can actually make sure that the permissions stay with that document. So if you take a document out of a location that's been protected, you can prevent people from forwarding it, you can prevent people from printing it, copying it, doing all that sort of stuff as well. So it's extremely powerful what it can do. And Microsoft is one of the few vendors that can provide this on a global scheme. Now we've got EMS E5, so that's going to extend the abilities of Azure AD Premium with the P2, also with the information protection to P2, and it's also going to include the Microsoft Cloud App Security. Now the Cloud App Security, for example, allows you to ingest logs from things like your servers, from your firewalls, and to look at trend analytics. So what are people doing? What are they accessing? What applications are they using? So typically in many organizations we find that a lot of businesses are using applications that haven't been approved by the organization, and this can lead to information leakage. So the Cloud App Security will allow you to monitor that and also to take actions. All right, so again, a bit of a squinty slide here, but you'll get the slides again, but this just shows you the different versions of Azure AD. You'll notice in the green here, these are all the additional features that come with the premium P1 and P2 of Azure, which you're getting with EMS. All right, so password write back, you're getting the ability to cloud app discovery, you're getting, again, a lot more things like connection health. And again, this is going to give you more flexibility, more options, more power to solve customer problems, but also the ability to build more services and generate more revenue out of implementing and making sure these features are working for a customer. So again, a lot of information to digest here, and you'll get the slides to allow you to look at this at a low level, but the takeaway here is you get a base level of features with Office 365, and to add features, you add Azure AD Premium on top of that, and probably one of the best ways to get that is to include EMS, where you'll also get a number of additional features as well. Now, not only have we got things like EMS that will do our back end and our control Office 365 to provide the base services, but don't overlook the fact that we've got Windows 10 now. So Windows 10 is unique in the fact that it allows us to join devices to Azure AD. So when we join a device, a Windows 10 device to Azure AD, we get the ability to have single sign-on, we get the ability to manage the devices, we get the ability to control these devices and make sure they're more compliant. So again, another table here to give you the differences between the different versions, so Home, Pro, we've also got Enterprise E3 and Enterprise E5. So the differences here are that most people are probably, hopefully, using Windows 10 Pro, which will give you those base level of features. But the important thing to remember here is that the next product we'll talk about, Microsoft 365, includes Windows 10 licensing. So the enterprise version of Microsoft 365 includes the enterprise version of Windows 10. Now, the enterprise version of Windows 10 is going to give you some major benefits here. It's going to give you some advanced features, so things like App Locker, things like App Guard, all that, and advanced threat protection is going to be built into it. You're also going to get the ability to do virtualization, so it's going to allow you to do VDI, and it's also potentially going to give you 5 licenses on the desktop. So that means that the users can use those 5 licenses on different devices. The Pro will only give you the one, but the Enterprise will give you multiple versions in there. And as you'll see, there's lots and lots of options here, but if you aren't exploiting the benefits of Windows 10 on your clients' desktops, then I think that it's going to be more and more apparent that it's going to be, the other systems are going to be less secure. So what it means is that we get the best security, we get the best application experience using the Windows 10 environment. And speaking of that, one of the best ways to do that is to look at the Microsoft 365 product. So in the Microsoft 365, this is basically, again, into 2 silos. So we have an enterprise product, which came from what's called the Secure Productive Enterprise, and we've now got a new Microsoft 365 business product, okay, which is aimed at, as they say there, the SMB market. Now, what are the actual SKUs involved? Well, you see that the enterprise includes E5, E3, and F1, very much like the Office 365. We have the Microsoft 365 Business, and if you're in education, you also have an education SKU. So what are the differences? What are the comparisons between and inclusions between all these plans? So again, you'll see here that the Microsoft 365 Business effectively includes Office 365 Business Premium, Windows 10 Pro, and a very, very basic version of EMS. Now, the enterprise version, so Microsoft 365 Enterprise E3, includes all the benefits of Office 365 E3, so unlimited inbox, unlimited OneDrive, data loss prevention, legal hold, all that, but it also includes Azure AD Premium 1. So when you go to the enterprise plans of Microsoft 365, you're effectively getting the EMS product included as well. So if we go Microsoft 365 Enterprise E3, we get EMS E3 as well as Windows 10 Enterprise E3. So the Microsoft 365 product is the combination of Office 365, Windows 10, and EMS, and in the enterprise versions of this, you get E3 or E5 of each of those. So the big differences here, again, is the Microsoft 365 E3 includes all the benefits of Office 365 E3 plus Azure AD Premium 1, it includes Intune, it includes Azure Information Protection P1, and so on. E5 will include EMS E5, which is Azure AD Premium P2, Azure Information Protection P2, Cloud App Discovery, and of course Intune. So once again, I still think that the best focus or the best value is the Microsoft 365 Enterprise E3, because you get all the enterprise version services in Office 365 you're familiar with, but you also get the EMS E5 and the Windows 10 Enterprise. So EMS E3 is going to give you Azure AD Premium 1, and there's a whole range of additional features as we talked about: password write back, enterprise state roaming, and so on, that are built into this product as well. And again, E5 extends that even further. Okay, so also in there we talked about the Microsoft 365 F1. So again, we've got an Office 365 frontline worker here, and we've also got a Microsoft 365 frontline. So obviously the Microsoft 365 is going to include some features of EMS that are aimed at web-based users only. And again, this is going to allow you to target the enterprise features to those who need them in the office, but also provide the same sort of protection to users who are probably going to be mainly web-based. And they're going to get the advantages of Azure AD Premium P1, they're going to get Windows Hello, Credential Guard, Direct Access. All of that stuff is going to be in the Microsoft 365 F1 product. You're going to have Windows Intune there to control it. So again, I think that that's a really big benefit, and there's a lot of people out there that really probably don't need more than the F1 license. So in summary, to drill this all down with one more slide. So what's included in Microsoft 365 F1, you'll see that you get Office Online, you get Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, all the good stuff. You also get some Windows Server CALs, you also get Microsoft Intune, Azure AD Premium 1, you'll get the Enterprise E3 functionality for Windows 10, and it doesn't include a number of things like Power Apps. So what it means is you can consume Power Apps, so you can use Power Apps that somebody else created, but you can't create a Power App yourself. All right, and there are some other limitations listed there. You'll notice that you don't get re-imaging rights on Windows 10 Enterprise. All right, that's typically for a full E3 license. All right, so this, again, this will give you hopefully a summarizing of the Microsoft 365 licensing. So if you look at Microsoft 365 Business, it's Office 365 Business Premium, Windows 10 Pro, and an SMB version of EMS. The frontline, or F1, will include Office 365 F1, Windows 10 Enterprise E3, and EMS F1. And Microsoft 365 E3 includes Office 365 E3, Windows 10 E3, and EMS E3. So I think that, to me, is the hero SKU, that Microsoft 365 Enterprise E3. And if you want the more features, the more functionality, the more control you get with E5, certainly that is available for you. But remember that Microsoft 365 is a combination of Office 365, Windows 10, and the Enterprise Mobility Suite, allowing you to extend the ability to control, manage, and secure the environment beyond just the back-end applications. All right, so with that, I think that this should be a list of resources. Again, these are some good steps that will get you started there and allow you to start learning all this sort of stuff. And again, if you have any questions, you'll get the slide deck after, go through that, and again, have a word to Ingram about giving you a hand, understanding what's available. But remember, all of this stuff here, you can mix and match, you can use standalone, you can introduce users to the very basic features, and then you can grow it from there. So remember that it's not an all or nothing strategy. It's not a monolithic. Again, tailor it to what the customer needs, and then you can grow into it. Add the features they really want. You know, what are their business pain points? You know, I really want to make sure that information in my employees' mailboxes is protected, so if they leave, they can't take it with them, they can't shift, delete it, and remove it. Okay, so in that case, we're going to need to look at legal hold or whatever to protect the mailboxes. So again, match the features to the pain points. That's how you can go and speak to your customers. Remember that if you're focused on cost, I think that then you're particularly focused on what everybody else is doing. If you're focused on value, then you're really trying to give the customer what they need to solve their problem. So my advice would be is have a look at the value that these features, especially the advanced features, provide. What do they solve for customers? And again, it's so easy to mix and match and tailor it exactly to what the customer needs. But I think with that, that's all from me.